Anybody on the internet can agree that Snapchat is a very problematic app. I mean, having disappearing messages in an app full of kids and teens is bound to foster some weird and downright illegal activity. The problem is that there isn't really anywhere for kids to go and socialize online. Sites like MySpace and Facebook that once used to be the default social app have been either deleted or invaded by old people watching AI videos, which leaves Snapchat as a very attractive and quote-unquote mature option for many teens. So in 2015, 3 French developers named Satya, Arthur, and Jeremy from a top engineering college decided to group together and create an app for people their age to socialize. They were 18 when they met and around 22 when they launched their first app together and had a legitimate interest to make a social platform for younger people with the sole intent of helping them make friends. They launched an app that was simply called Yellow, which the founders said was meant to fill a social discovery gap for teenagers, especially for those who didn't use Facebook, as it was still 2015. The statement of the founders was very weird, however. They liked the swiping interface of apps like Tinder, as it lets you quickly see what a person is like and connect with them. And this works well on Tinder, as most people are there for casual fun and dating. But Yellow would use this swiping feature and replace dating with friendship connections intended for young people. Similar to Tinder, you'd make a profile with selfies, a name, age, and bio, and swipe right or left on other users. You then gain the ability to DM people who you matched with only. The problem here, of course, is that replicating the swiping mechanic of an app used primarily for dating would mean that many users would naturally gravitate towards doing exactly that. And the issue with Yellow was that, unlike Tinder, it had very limited moderation for underage users. Yellow launched globally in 2016 and gained immense traction. The way the app was set up was that users would enter their birth date and would be grouped with either teens or adults, with teens being 13 to 17 and adults being 18 plus. The idea of a Tinder for their age group was of course super interesting to the teens and kids who would hear about it, and people started sharing screenshots of their matches to brag to other teens, which all contained a yellow logo. This gave many teens FOMO, because why wouldn't you want to be a part of an app where people your age are meeting up and potentially doing something else? The app was being downloaded tens of thousands of times per day at its peak, and became quite popular through apps like Snapchat and Instagram, which was where the screenshots of matches were being posted and shared. But let's be honest, the FOMO of the app wasn't that people were making friends. Nobody would match with a cute girl and post it on their Instagram story with the caption, "Hey guys, I made a new friend today." It was an unrestricted platform where girls would be encouraged to make a provocative profile, since that would get them more matches, and that made Yellow a very attractive app for the girls who liked the attention and for the guys who liked the girls. Unsurprisingly, the app drew immediate criticism from many news outlets. For starters, setting your birth date didn't require any ID and could be set to literally anything. This allowed many adults to lie about their age and begin receiving matches from people as young as 13. And also let teens lie about their age to be paired with other adults who didn't know they were talking to a minor. As I said previously, teens would be encouraged to be provocative with their profiles, but this also applied to chats, with many sending not safe for work images to each other. This was of course a problem with teens, but an even bigger one when we remember that some of these teens were actually adults lying about their age. And Yellow had zero safety checks for any of these things. They didn't ask for selfie or name verification, users could create tons of fake profiles instantly, reporting tools were basically non-existent, photos had basic nudity filters which could be bypassed easily, and the platform also didn't have a way to prevent the teens from having off-platform encounters, similar to how Roblox does. In 2016, the NSPCC, which is a UK group that helps kids, warned parents that the app quote-unquote enabled strangers to view children's personal information and photos with no security checks. While this was already bad for Yellow, even more coverage would appear in 2017 from The Guardian, Wired, and BBC, with headlines like "Yellow app dubbed Tinder for teens sparks concerns," or "Is your teen using the Yellow app?" Schools even began advising parents to check their children's online activity and delete the app if they had it. But by mid-2017, Yellow had over 7 million users, most of which were between 13 and 17, and was growing strongest amongst 14 to 16-year-olds. This gave the Yellow brand a super negative reputation from both parents and schools, which was a clear problem for the future of the app. In December of 2018, the app officially rebranded from Yellow to Yubo. The founders wanted to distance themselves and the app from the previous Tinder for Teens reputation and position it to be a place focused on actual social and group connection instead of an unmoderated dating app. The first core feature that they added was live streaming, which reflected their goal for encouraging social groups. Up to 10 users could live stream, with hundreds more being able to watch the stream and leave comments. These streams were public by default and visible to all users in the same age group, so streams began by teens would not be recommended for 18+ users. These live streams would be scrolled instead of swiped and gained their own section in the app, which Yubo believed would promote more social connection and less intimacy between users. This was a very interesting approach, as it made the app similar to something like Omegle, but still retained the appeal of being for a newer generation to connect and talk together. But this of course came with a lot more issues for Yubo to handle. Explicit content was still an issue, and not much was done about improving moderation from the previous app. Users would roleplay explicit content or sometimes just straight up expose themselves on live. This was a problem with Omegle, but the core audience here being teens, many would be pressured to flash on camera, and a lot of these streams would be screen recorded and shared off-platform, which is of course both illegal and unsafe. Nothing significant changed about selfie or ID verification either, which still let adults gain access to the teen side of the live streams and chats. Yubo attempted to fix these with better AI nudity detectors and human moderators, but it still didn't do enough, as the AI didn't prevent people from suggestive role-playing or having off-platform conversations, and human moderators would only monitor popular live streams instead of the smaller ones, which was typically where these events would happen. By the end of this period in 2019, Yubo grew to over 20 million users, most of which were still 13 to 17. While a lot of the initial scrutiny of the app died down, headlines slowly continued to rise up that would question the safety of Yubo, and certain official organizations like eSafety Australia began tracking the app more seriously. But even with that, Yubo's rebrand worked very well and kept the app out of huge scrutiny. In late 2020, with most people being locked in their houses, Yubo doubled its user count from its initial 20 million. It also raised $12.3 million in funding from many notable investors, one of those being Village Global, which is a fund backed by Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and many more. Satya, the co-founder, labeled Yubo as a place to hang out live instead of a content feed, and claimed that this was the reason for the rapid growth and high retention of Yubo. And this was their new strategic pivot away from Snapchat or Instagram. Yubo was a self-described live social discovery platform instead of a typical social media app, as it had no likes or followers, no real algorithm, and only had live streams and group chats as its core features. Critics would still complain that this was just a branding spin and that YouTube wasn't addressing the real risks, which were grooming and harassment. And to combat this, Yubo released its first major round of safety tools, which would scan systems for suggestive gestures and not just nudity. Text filtering was improved, photos and profile pictures were now scanned for explicit content, and more human moderators were hired. Additionally, Yubo was testing identity verification and had users upload selfies for analysis, which would determine the user's age. But this was inconsistent and not mandatory for all users yet. Either way, Yubo was positively recognized for these changes, and while news sites still warned parents about the app, most of them just trusted their children to not talk to any weirdos online, just as they would on any other platform. For the first time ever, Yubo was not part of any big controversy and just continued growing normally. On May 24th, 2022, a tragic incident occurred at an elementary school in Texas. I won't go into more detail out of respect for the event, but the aftermath revealed that the perpetrator had been using Yubo frequently in the weeks leading up to the act of violence, which would put many eyes on Yubo in a very negative way. This perpetrator would spend hours a day live streaming on the app, and several female users would later share screenshots and clips of him threatening violent acts towards girls and children, as well as shamelessly harassing girls and threatening guys in DMs, and also showcasing his weapons on camera. He was apparently reported multiple times, yet nobody had heard about him prior to this event, and his account wasn't even banned. This caused a massive spark of controversy for Yubo, with it being linked to a person who committed this awful crime. People were appalled that he was able to showcase weapons and openly state threats of violence without any response from Yubo, and talks began once again about the true nature of the app and its founders. Yubo reacted with many changes, including the detection of harmful language and better reporting systems for users in live streams. These were seen as a way to save face and would likely never have happened without this controversy. Yubo's reputation with parents, lawmakers, and even members of Congress was now severely damaged. In 2023, Yubo pushed for full biometric age estimation in an attempt to distance itself from the lackluster moderation as much as it could. While this was tested previously, this update pushed it as a mandatory step for every single new and existing user, which led to tens of thousands of users being removed. Phone number verification was introduced, age group splitting became a lot more strict, and Yubo began tightening its rules and restricting accounts much quicker than it did previously. Certain safety groups, like the before mentioned eSafety Australia, would give Yubo praise for the first time for being the only platform to use real age estimation, alongside the many other safety features that were clearly thought out properly. By mid-2025, Yubo has over 60 million users and has seemingly seeded itself into a good spot as of now. It is still being critiqued for its use of facial recognition, imperfect moderation, and it's seemingly still marketing itself as an app for teens to meet attractive people their age, akin to a dating app. Yubo is still considered one of the riskiest platforms for minors, although it has implemented very high-tech safety tools throughout the years. What do you think of Yubo? Is it safe and truly a friendship platform, or does it secretly understand and promote its appeal of being a dating app for teens? Let me know in the comment, and share the video, as I've done a lot of research on the subject and believe more people should learn about this weird app. And of course, thank you for watching.